And it was hindsight because I hadn't sort of had the right paperworks and sort of protections in place at the time. It came back to us, and I just had to fork out the money for all the material and all the time, and I just had to warrant the work. And it was, man, that was like a $20,000
Yeah.
mistake.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jonathan from Autodesk. Welcome to Shop Talk, the podcast series where we talk to makers, inventors, engineers, and designers from shop to shop. Today, we're talking to Adrian Cooper from Cobalt CNC in Australia. Adrian got interested in 3D printing very early on in his career, slowly turned that into a full-fledged machining business, but somehow also finds time to do all these really cool projects that really make him tick. So I hope you stick with us. It's a good one. All right. Adrian Cooper of Cobalt CNC. Thanks for coming to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I like the contrast we're getting right now between the machine behind you and the one behind me. And
Yeah.
I promise you, it's not just the angle the camera's at. Like that, this is actually a serious production CNC machine. So I'm excited to talk about all the cool stuff you do and the wide variety of work and the fun projects. And I think you've got a lot to offer our audience here. But
Yep.
first things first, what is that CNC machine named?
Uh, Glamdring.
Ah, okay. And then the
Yep.
other ones?
So our lathe is named Sting, and our other mill is named Enduril. So they're all Lord of the Rings swords because when we first opened the shop up, we wanted a good way to identify each machine on the network. I didn't want to just have machine A, B, and C because that seemed pretty boring and generic. So we decided a Lord of the Rings reference was fitting. So we
Love
went
it.
with that.
Yeah, you're in good company, man. There's a yeah, big fan myself since reading the
It's
books really, but um
Yeah,
the
I grew up having it read to me as my bedtime story, so
yeah.
it's ingrained in me nowadays.
Yeah, for sure. Autodesk actually played a pretty big part in those movies as well with the visual effects stuff. Um
Oh, really?
yeah. So Maya was pretty heavily used in it, and then they developed some proprietary stuff for the crowds, like the mobs, right? So when you have those wide shots and there's all the orcs and these all the
Yep.
individual characters that are moving realistically, and it doesn't just look like a bunch of ants, um, that's yeah, we worked on that stuff too.
Okay, that's awesome. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
When I say we, I mean the royal we. I had nothing to do with it, obviously. I was a kid.
I mean, you're still involved. You're watching it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the important part, right? That's where the money comes in.
That's the most important part.
Yeah. So aside from being a Lord of the Rings fan, what else did you do when you were a kid that sort of launched you into this place now where you have a CNC machine shop and you do design engineering and all the other things you do?
I was always a tinkerer when I was a kid. I was that classic case of, you'd pull the household remotes and stuff apart, but never put them back together, and the whole family would be screaming at you because you'd destroy everything. Um, and my mum always encouraged that side of creativity. Had a lot of Lego when I was a kid, always just, I'd watch a Star Wars movie or Lord of the Rings, and then I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to recreate that out of just whatever Lego I had around me. So then as the years got on, sort of kept stepping up in capability from Lego to then woodworking stuff and then to 3D printing when that sort of came into its own, and then sort of just kept steamrolling into this. Certainly being a long journey, but I never thought I'd actually end up in a machine shop. Didn't even know it existed till I was in my mid-20s. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, it's a funny thing about growing up in places like we did. You're in Newcastle, New South Wales. I'm in Portland, Oregon. Um, we don't think in our respective countries, we don't think a whole lot about manufacturing usually, just as a normal person, going through his day, right? Like it's something that is very much kind of behind the scenes in both of these places. You don't know what that big building is you're driving by, but it turns out there's a full machine shop in there doing car parts and aerospace things, and it turns out there's all this what turns out to be really high end manufacturing happening behind the scenes. So how did you get a glimpse of that? Like, where did you first find out that it was a thing?
um, so I I started all this out buying a little 3D printer. I had a crazy idea that I was going to make a motorbike helmet with a heads-up display that'd have AI sort of, tracking all this sort of stuff. But this was back in 2015, and I just I didn't actually know anything. I just thought it'd be a cool idea, and I convinced my parents to buy me a 3D printer to do this. Um, and that's where I thought it was all going to be. I just thought it was 3D printing was the world, and I sort of invested. I had some Formlabs printers. I went deep down that rabbit hole, and then around that time, I was also getting into watchmaking, and I was just
Mm.
tinkering with my grandfather had passed away, and he had this whole box of old watches that he'd just never thrown out. And I started getting really heavily into watchmaking, but only in the form of, pulling them apart, buying the parts, rebuilding them, fixing them up. And then because I was 3D printing, I had the harebrained idea that I wanted to make my own watch. And I was like, well, how are watches made? And I just started, deep diving into YouTube and Google. And then I discovered, CNC machining of the cases and a few components. And I was like, okay, I need some kind of metal machine. And then I saw how much they were. And I was like, that's god awfully expensive. There's no way I could ever afford something like that. And I found the Pocket NC, little 5 axis,
Yep.
and that was affordable. And so I was like, oh, that should be knowing nothing about tolerances or machine rigidity or what you needed to actually do machining. I was like, perfect, I'll buy that.
Yeah.
And that was my first little step into CNC machining. And then quickly realized as good of a like hobby machine that is by no means set up for doing watchmaking.
Yeah.
Um, like it's great for everything bar like crazy tolerances. So I spent probably a year on that just learning how to make just things, nothing tangible or sellable or any customer work, just messing around. Um, and then I sort of not really sure how I ended up transitioning to a bigger machine. I ended up meeting a guy that I was doing 3D printing and scanning for, and then he just asked whether I was interested in, and I sort of had mentioned I'd started machining and like just with this tiny little thing, and then he proposed going to business together because he was doing car restorations. So then I sort of jumped on the opportunity and we bought a Silex 7 together. And I was in his shed for a couple of years. And those couple of years is where I sort of really um, went from not knowing anything to having a deep dive into building suspension systems and reverse engineering whole parts of cars and machining them and learning how to do all the wackiest work holding you can think of to make a big car part in a tiny form factor machine. So, there's a lot of deep
Oh, so you were
learning. So
still using the
it's
Pocket NC for that when you started with him.
oh no, 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 no.
Okay. I was about to say, like, what
So
kind of
I
car
had the
parts are you
pocket.
talking about here?
It's like micro little knobs. Um, no, so I was designing an interior for an old Mustang, and that project never finished, but that got me the contacts um of this guy that wanted to sort of step up restorations in Newcastle. And I just told him, I think we should get a CNC machine just to go from 3D printed plastic parts to machine parts because I was still early days. My eyes are starting to open to what machining was really capable of. Um, and he agreed. And the deal was I'd fund the machine. So I got a loan out and, he'd give me the space to sort of to work in and he'd give me the customers. So I'd be working through him
Hmm.
with his customers on the cars. Um, and it was it's right at the start of COVID as well. So I bought the machine in January 2020.
Oh boy.
and then COVID hit, and I was questioning life decisions because it was still getting built, and then it got delivered in June, so it was like peak lockdown, everything was shut. That 2 years really allowed me to deep dive into learning without too many consequences or
Hmm.
stresses. I didn't have to deal with rent because I was in this guy's shed. He had customers, and there wasn't financial pressure because the support from the government was good.
So, okay, so then you took advantage of the COVID lockdowns to really get into it and learn the ins and outs and get up and running. And you had customers along the way, so that's great. Um,
Yep.
so then, since then, as things obviously that's long gone at this point, everything's opened back up.
Yep.
Tell us about your business. Like, who are your customers? What do you make for the most part that makes the business run?
Um, we are pretty diverse with our customer base. I'm still doing automotive stuff, not how I used to, but um, still sort of in that industry a little bit. But our biggest customers are probably the mining industry and the health industry are our
Okay.
two big customers. So we service quite a few of our customers are actually the fab shops that then the mines or an R&D company will be their customer, and we get a lot of throughput
Hmm.
work that they just can't do the machining. Um, and the health sector was purely a happenstance of I heard another machine shop had shut down and they were servicing. There's a laundromat down the road from where I am that services the whole east coast of New South Wales. So they do all the hospitals, everything medical. They do all the laundry for that. So it's a massive. I think it's a 5,000 square meter shed. Like it's a huge facility. And the company that was doing all of the servicing and repair work went out of business. And I just dropped my head in and said, "Hey, I heard you need someone to do your stuff." And because I just sort of dropped in there like, "Who are you? Bugger off. We don't need any of that." And I was like, "Oh, well, it's worth a shot. Whatever, move on." And then a few weeks later, I got a phone call saying, "Hey, we've had a breakdown and we need this crazy, bizarre thing that we can't buy anymore. Do you reckon you can help?" And that sort of got me
And
that
crawling
in.
back,
And
huh?
now yep. So now we it's basically all the maintenance. So they've got all this old equipment that, is 15, 20 years old, and the suppliers or the OEMs just don't exist anymore. They don't make
Mhm.
parts for them. But the cost to refit a place like that is just ridiculous. So we sort of do all the stuff to keep it up and running and crazy problem solving where you have to make this new, say, a new drive motor fit this really ancient thing, but it's got some crazy gearbox in the middle. So you got to adapt it all and make it work like seamlessly so it works for another 5,000 hours without breaking down. So we do a lot of problem solving work. So very low volume, but you know, time time intensive. But
Did you ever see that movie
um,
Apollo 13?
yes,
So there's a
yeah,
scene in that movie where it's after the whatever the accident happens, and
yeah,
stuff starts to break down, and they need an air filter, right? So the air filter is failed or something, and they're all going to start like, the air scrubber. They're all going to pass out or something if they can't figure it out.
yeah,
And there's a bunch of engineers in this room, and the guy comes in with a box, and he's like, "Okay, we need to make the part for this fit this hole with this stuff," and he dumps it out on the table. Like
yeah,
that's exactly what that is, right? Like this thing
yeah.
failed. It's got
That's
to go from here to here. Now figure it out. We don't really care about the money. It's just got to happen fast. Yeah,
that's exactly what
that's
we
like an
do.
engineer's dream, man. That's really cool.
So it's a lot of fun, and sometimes it's stressful because we might be running production on another job that's another customer. Say we're doing some mining stuff, and then I'll get a call like, "Hey, we've had a breakdown and we need this done today."
Yeah.
And it's like you need to get material, tooling, and everything, and it needs to be ready in like 6 hours.
Yep.
So I can
Super high
I can
stakes.
charge a lot for the work, but I can't afford to botch it. There's no room for error. So
Yeah.
it's stressful, but it's also really teaches you to really forward think very quickly because you can't afford to just scrap the part or anything. So it's sort of the
Yeah.
downside is now customers have the expectation that we can just pull miracles. Um, and I don't like that because, you know, then when you fail, it's like the world's come crashing down.
Dude. I can just imagine
Um,
sending a part out to some mining machine and they're okay, we're back in business and they start cranking it up and then that one fails and you've just made it and they just paid a bunch of money for it.
yeah.
Oof. Have you
And
ever
then
had
we have
any
to warrant it and
has that ever happened to you or is so far everything's
yeah.
worked as was supposed to?
No. I've definitely had some very, very expensive mistakes that have cost me. Um, a big one was and this wasn't technically our fault, but we had to wear it, where the customer hadn't defined the tolerances for the part.
Hmm.
And it was big blocks of steels, about 40 kilo blocks. And it was a lot of material removal. It was probably 4 hours on the machine, and there was about 50 of them.
Whoa.
And we got to the end of it, and we'd measured it all to the spec we'd been sort of told, but they hadn't okayed it with sort of the next chain of command or however they work. And they were all out of spec. They wouldn't fit. They were too tight, just sorry, too loose. So we couldn't add the material back on.
Yeah.
We couldn't remachine it.
Nope.
And it was hindsight because I hadn't sort of had the right paperworks and sort of protections in place at the time. It came back to us, and I just had to fork out the money for all the material and all the time, and I just had to warrant the work. And it was, man, that was like a $20,000
Yeah.
mistake that I just had
You're lucky it was only
to eat
20K.
it.
Yeah.
Well, that was the material. That's not including my time on remachining it.
Oof.
I just had to eat the material cost, and that was 2 weeks before Christmas.
Oh no.
So I think I did
Dude.
both weeks were like 100 and something hour weeks. I
Oh,
think I had like 6 hours sleep throughout each week, like
oh
total.
man.
So it
Brutal,
was the
dude.
most brutal slog I'd ever had. And it was a very hard lesson of have all your T's dotted, all your I's, make sure you've got your own protections in place so that the bigger companies, because we're only two people, we're
Yeah.
not a big company. Um,
A lesser
and
man
they're
would
able
have
to just walk
folded
all
under
over
that
us.
pressure before Christmas.
Oh,
So
dude,
good on you.
it was like a scenario of like we this was about 6 months post splitting from my previous business partner,
Hmm.
and I was trying to accrue new companies, and it was like a scenario of I cannot afford to botch this because you know Newcastle's not a big place
Yeah.
industry wise, and word spreads like wildfire.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
and
If you're the guy who
reputation
who
is
gave them bad
everything.
parts and didn't fix it, there
Yeah.
goes your business. Yeah, I get it, man.
Yeah.
I get it.
So it was either hand in the keys or just get it done. So I just had to just suffer for 2 weeks, but it
Well,
was, we're still here. So
yeah. So your bread and butter basically is mining industry, less automotive lately, this medical kind of sanitation thing. But you have a lot of really cool projects. Like you share all these fun projects on Instagram mostly. So I'm curious about those. The cool what I really like about your work is that you've obviously got this bread and butter business that is an essential service to the people that you are working with. But you clearly also have a passion for this because when you go through your Instagram feed, it's just like cool project after cool project, like the cars and sunglasses and just all this fun stuff too. So what's some stuff you're really proud of there?
Um, the sunglasses are definitely a thing I'm quite proud of. It's they've taken a hiatus with, with a baby, and we've moved into a new shed this year. And I sort of had to, you pick your time and you have to take a back seat to it. But I've still been plodding away at it. So I've actually totally redesigned them, um, so that I could make them easier to produce so I can try and sell them again. But the sunglasses are they're that opportunity to just make something crazy high tolerance, but also just finished like jewelry. Like a lot of what we do, the finish doesn't matter. I always try and make stuff as beautiful as I can because, when the customer gets it, they're always like, instead of just this roughly machined thing, they're just like, wow, this is so pretty. And then they want to
Yeah.
come back. Um, but products like jewelry or sunglasses or whatever allow you to really take pride in playing around with finishes and tool parts and actually make a work of art that you can actually, wear or use. Um, and the tolerances to make the sunglasses are surprisingly tight to make it feel good.
Yeah. Yeah.
The first few sets, they were a thing, but they felt like garbage because the tolerances were
Hmm.
loose. So everything's got
Can
to
imagine.
be absolutely tippy top. Otherwise, you feel it. And when you put it on your face,
We take
you
so
feel
much
it. I
for
don't know how to
granted.
describe it.
I mean, the mundane things around us, we just think, oh, whatever, this is whatever, no big deal, throw away a pair of sunglasses. The cheap sunglasses you get from a gas station have engineering built into them that's mind blowing. These tiny
Yeah.
little screws and these perfect tolerances, and like, something that's going to be able to do this over and over again and stick on your face and not fall off when you tilt your head forward. And it's a really impressive thing. Can we see a pair?
Yeah.
Or we could do a shop tour if they're like floating around somewhere. Maybe now's a good time for that.
What I'll do is I'll go get the sunglasses and then I can put them in the front of the screen. Then I can do a shop tour after
Okay.
that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Um,
Cool. All right. Let's see what you got.
so, um, so these are the first proper set that we were
Oof.
selling.
Nice.
Um, so all machined from 7075, and you can throw them across a parking lot and it doesn't phase them. But the challenges we found were, um, you can see here we scalloped out along here, and that was to give springiness
Make it.
to them.
Mm,
But it was very hard. Everyone's got a different size head, so and we couldn't. These we had to hand bend. We weren't able to figure out a good way to machine them curved or anything like that. And the hinges were pressed pins
mhm.
to get the feel. It all worked. It's just very fiddly. So it took a long time to assemble one set, and then it just took so much time that the amount of time we're spending wasn't really viable as a product. So
Yeah.
I sort of put a pin in it, and I was like, okay, I need to rethink this whole thing. So then I sort of was looking at my reading glasses, and they've got the little spring hinges. It's like I need to put spring hinges in my hinges. And because I'm a stubborn fool, I opted that I need to machine the hinges still and not just buy an off-the-shelf solution. So these are all machined on the machine behind me. I don't know if I can. It's a bit
I think
dark.
we've got you.
Um,
You've got close-ups of
there's
those on
vi-
your
I've got
Instagram, don't you?
close-ups on those Instagram.
Okay, we'll cut that in.
Um, so these are retained. Each hinge has two of these in it.
Okay.
And this is a bought item. It's the actual spring mechanism. And I have to machine a N.9 millimeter thread with a little grub screw to retain it into the hinge. which all sounds like crazy complicated, but believe it or not, that's easier
Yeah.
than pressing the pin in, because the pin relied on perfect tolerance, whereas the spring hinge, I've actually got a little bit of room because it wants to pull itself in.
Hmm.
So I can actually have a little bit more breathing space with how I make them. So then the next challenge was the arms and making them easy to make. So these are now have a slight curve on them, and we changed the profile to make them a bit simpler.
Nice.
Um, and so now we can machine the curve in on the fourth,
Okay.
and we
Yeah.
part it off and then just do a cleanup. And then the
Nice.
hinge is now, instead of before, I had I wanted to have the hinge built into the arm,
Hmm.
but it still made it bulky. So I ended up just going back to um, I can
You got
send
to
you some
pick your battles,
photos.
man. Nobody's going to see
Yeah,
that hinge
so
when they're on, you know?
exactly. So I'll send some photos through, but this system still looks good. I can make the hinge now like another little piece of jewelry. Um, and it all works a lot better. So that's I'm hoping to do a run in January, but you know,
Nice.
priorities, so we'll see.
Is this just a fun thing you like to do and you're sort of selling them at cost, or is this a real business venture? Like, how do you look at it?
The long-term goal for me is I'd love to be able to just produce really cool items and that be the primary business.
Yeah.
Um, However, I still have to feed a family and pay an employee and pay my rent and all that sort of stuff. So the sort of long-term goal is I'll keep doing job shop stuff and then try and do products. And as they take over, I can back off on the job shopping and I can sort of, because I'm much more into this sort of stuff where I can do crazy surface finishes and, make art than big blocks with holes in it for the
Yeah.
mines and then, crazy, stressful, zero room for error
Yeah.
challenges, which is all fun, but it's not definitely not a sustainable long-term thing mentally. Like it just drains you.
Sure.
Um, and also things like the car. I want to be able to play around with that and sort of make content around that rather than um, because we have the tools to make it into this crazy car. So I'd like to explore that rather than just buying off the shelf items or trying to make do. So
Cool. Can we get a tour of your shop now? Is that on the
yeah.
table?
But there we go.
Yeah. All good.
Right. So shop's a bit of a mess. It's raining outside, so
Nice big
that's
space.
shop dog. So we just recently got this bandsaw.
Yeah.
Um, we actually got this for free from the guy I bought the lathe off,
Oh,
and he was retiring, and he just couldn't sell his machine, so couldn't sell the bandsaw. So he just said, "Have it."
nice.
So it's a 300 mil diameter bandsaw with full auto cutting. So
Nice.
which is coming in handy for a job we just got in because we've got to do about 300 parts out of this 50 mil hex bar. And um, yeah, it's made it a lot easier to be able to cut it up with that than our old hand bandsaw. And then we've got our 3D printers on the pallet racking over here. This is my little tooling area. So all the tool holders. And then I'm using Gridfinity to sort of lay out all my collets.
Shout out to
100%.
Zach Friedman.
And sort of ended up making our own uh, end mill holders for the
Hmm.
Gridfinity, but we used his like box storage. So that's been a game changer. All I did was print these little buckets, and I just had stuff piled in there, and it was constantly digging through.
Yeah. You buy something three
Um,
times.
Yep. So
And
that's,
the other two are still in there. Yeah.
yep. So that's helped. That's helped a lot with being organized. Um, and then it's just there's a few drawers that are just parts. Drills are a work in progress. Same with all our taps, but they're somewhat organized. And then we've just recently set up the new 0 point system in the machine. Um,
Oh, cool.
and the really cool thing with the fourth axis one is it's actually, I don't know if you can see, but it's actually can't see too well. This fixture plate is got a through hole,
Oh,
so I can actually run bar through the entire fourth axis with the
nice.
0 point system. So I can do like gear hobbing with it, and that's made doing setups a lot easier.
Is this Sting over here, the lathe?
Yep. So this is a 1985 Hitachi Seiki. Um, and the
Nice.
guy we bought it off only really ran brass and plastic. So
It's in great shape
it's
then.
it's in great, it still holds about 2 microns repeatable.
Wow.
So,
40 years
you
old.
know, 40 years old and still an absolute champion. The only downside is it's got these crazy KV40 holders
Uh-huh.
you just can't buy anymore. So we've had to try and figure out how to make our own, which
Yeah.
is a ongoing project. This machine's actually identical to Glandring.
Okay. This
Um,
is Andrew Hill.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this also has a fourth axis, but we're primarily using it for big work. And I've currently got all the panels off for the glass as we're in the middle of replacing the glass for the machine.
Yeah.
Uh,
I noticed you have
so
some fifth axis work holding as well.
yes, so
Love those
um,
guys.
use a whole lot of fifth axis stuff, and we use it in combination with. I've got a friend here that started his own work holding company, so
Oh, cool.
he's sort of thrown some of his stuff our way, and it's all Lang based. Um, so now this machine uses all his stuff,
Hmm.
and then Andrew uses all fifth axis stuff,
Cool.
and it works good. It works fine. We've never really had any issues. The resident shop dog that's here every day. She's a very good dog.
Well, Adrian, thanks for the tour, man. Really enjoyed hearing your story. I think our audience is going to love it. Yeah, good stuff. Can you tell everybody where to find you? How do they get those sweet sunglasses, or how do they just follow your work?
Thank you. It was awesome to come on. You can find us on Instagrams where we mostly post, just Cobalt_CNC. And we try to post once a week. We've been a bit slow with a baby. But the plan is we try to just keep interesting stuff that sort of shows off what manufacturing is all about and show off what it can be about.
Love it. Thanks a lot, man. See you next time.
Yeah, thank you. See you later.
Hey, everyone. Jonathan here. If you're a designer, builder, or maker and you want to be part of this podcast, we'd love to hear from you. The email is in the video description below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with all things Shop Talk. If you're ready to try Fusion 3 yourself, find the link in our description.